Hey you, thanks for tuning in. I know you have real estate questions. And the specific question is, where are we at? Where are we at in real estate? Toronto real estate, GTA real estate, Canadian real estate, all of that stuff. You might be confused. On the other hand, you might be comfortable and you're settled in and you're thinking to yourself, why is everybody freaking out? But I have a graph. You might have seen this graph before, but I will decipher it. I will go 20 years back. I will go in detail, and I'm sure you will be able to find yourself in that particular graph. And most importantly, we will find out exactly where we are at in that particular graph. So let's go ahead together and let's dive into this particular graph. Look, it's not easy. I get it. Nobody wants to know the truth, and the truth hurts. You might be stuck. Maybe you did some, let me call it monopoly moves that are kind of biting you right now. You only wanted the best, right? But let's go step by step and let's try to decipher different stages and their actual stages demonstrated in historical graphs, in today graphs, and these patterns seem to be repeating. You guessed it. Although, for most of you, and yes, in the comments, I try to answer all of your questions as best as I can. But now the other side says, like, look, this time around, it will be different. I'm sure you heard that one before. But let's dive into the graph and let's see how that actual graph, what does it say on this actual graph, right? So you have the stealth phase, which is the beginning of a phase, then awareness phase, mania phase, and blow off phase. Obviously, this is throughout the time. So let's go with the first check, and the first check is takeoff. I believe that the takeoff of real estate by data in Canada was somewhere around the 2000s, the early 2000s. Back in the day, that was the smart money. Everybody's like, okay, so I need to do something. We just got off a huge recession in the 90s and all of that stuff. It took a little bit of time and steam to build up that confidence, to build up the economy and all that stuff. And now we have the early 2000s where people are actually speculating, calculating, having extra funds, and doing the right moves. So that's the first graph. As you can see here, it's going up slowly, usually 3 to 5% annual return on a investment. So moving forward on the next one is the first sell-off. So the first sell-off, it usually takes it averages, but it usually takes, that sweet 10-year mark, double-digit kind of thing, right? And I've seen it in this real estate market in Toronto, right? Folks that bought in the early 2000s, right? They double their money basically, right? And they're like, listen, I'm out. It's enough. It's a sell-off. And the market started maybe feathering. It was around 2008, 9, 10. Like we have seen that happen, right? So the first line soldiers that invested that smart money, some of them exited. They said, look, I made my profits, I'm exiting, right? And then we get into the mania phase, which is the public phase, and everything gets blown up, right? Through media attention, right? Obviously, back in the day, there was more, obviously, TV, some social media platforms were doing this, what we're doing today, but it was everywhere. Newspaper, TV, different shows, HGTV as an example, they would do this, flip a home, do this and that, like, you know what I mean? You can make so much money, be creative, then stores caught up on that, like Home Depot and Rona and all of that stuff. So I remember around that time, I would say, 2012, 13, 14, 15, those few years, it was crazy. It seemed like everybody was renovating. everything, like DIY projects. There were books on the shelves, like marketing everywhere and all of that stuff. People doing their own basements, people, because people wanted to get in the game of real estate, right? And everybody thought they knew what they were doing. Fine. So then you get to the next step, and this is the enthusiasm, right? So everything is working fine. The graph is shooting up. The market is strong, right? So in the 2015 and 16, we have seen that, oh, I flipped a house that I kind of renovated, right? Like we go back, like the media attention, like the push, right? So, oh, I've done it. I made some money, right? I painted walls. I made some gains on my property. So let me flip it, right? Like let me flip these homes. Let me make some money off of this gig. This is fantastic, right? So then we get into another stage, and this stage is obviously connected with so many other things, right? Like, I mean, we had COVID period, and then we had that absolute boom in the market. People were sinking their dollars and cents into housing, into real estate, and all of that stuff. Obviously, for a good reason, for the most part, right? But for the most part, it was speculation. Money was free, everything was good. We were in kind of a pickle. Everybody wanted a better space to live in because we were kind of boxed in, and everybody thought, okay, so I need to get bigger, better, faster, and then it became the greed factor, right? So when I spoke about to people about this particular segment of greed, right? Like it was like they started to like these people were like, I want it. Like the fear of missing out kicked in so hard, right? And for a good reason, because you had 20, 30, 40 offers. Like I traded myself, and it's like, what are you gonna do? No conditions on the offer. If you're not the highest number, nobody cares, right? And you have 25 seconds to make up your mind, right? It's like it was so heavy on me, right? Like I'm just looking at these people, they're like pale. My buyers are sitting there like trying to think what their next step is, and they're being nauseous of the entire situation, and it seems like they're buying something that's not worthy. I mean, they were buying a house, right? Their livelihood, like they like nobody, everybody stopped caring about the best community or school district, or like it was just like, no, I need to have it, I want it, right? So we get into the next step, which is delusion, right? So when we got into that step, right, like that step was definitely interesting, and it was like whoever is kind of in that bracket, whoever made it to a certain level or a particular level, they upgraded their real estate portfolio or they did something like that, they didn't care. Like, and I ask questions. I'm like, okay, so fine. So you have that. So you bought a couple of these real estate units or you upgraded, and how do you think this will go in the future? I asked them. They're like, why do I care? I have 3 units or 7 units and I have a home. And I'm like, I get it. But how about your kids? Well, my kids are great. Well, what about other kids? Or what about the next future? Who cares, man? Cutthroat, doesn't matter. I want it all. I want it all. So I heard that, like, that kept repeating throughout that process. So the greed kicked in, and it seemed like that top layer that could do something. They're like, you know what? We want it. We want the top. We want the top. We want to stay there. Who cares about the rest? Doesn't matter. I want to be the top. I want to control the situation. And doesn't matter what happens because it will never stop. Which brings me to the next point. And the next point is no limits. Even at the peak 2021 and early 2022, I was talking to people. I'm like, what is it? What is it you're hoping for? Like, just tell me. Just tell me, what is it you're hoping for? You're buying a crappy house that needs tremendous renovations, which you have no clue about. You're clueless. All right. You don't even know how to buy bulbs for your own house. So now you're getting into a project that you have no idea. Okay. You have no idea how much it's going to cost you because, the prices were kind of like off everywhere. You couldn't even find these tradespeople anywhere. They were paying ridiculous amounts for these homes that were literally garbage in every aspect, with all due respect. The layouts, garbage. Size, too small. Maybe garage, maybe not. And you're paying $1.5 million, and what are you hoping for? No limits. Like, do you really think that this house will be $3 million in 6 months? As an example, I'm over exaggerating here, but and for some odd reason, it's like they were blinded by the whole thing. They're like, it has to go up. It has to go up. People have to live somewhere. And yes, I agree with that. People do have to live somewhere. But if people cannot afford to live in that particular house or condo or a tent, then they cannot afford to live, right? Like, maybe I want to drive a Rolls Royce, but what if I don't have the budget for it or I don't have the funds, right? Like, either I have to give it back or, like, you get the point. Like, it's like you're not entitled just because you, like, it's a necessity, right? It's a necessity to eat every day, and there's like lineups in these food shelters. But brings me now to the other point. So the no limit is obviously a very dangerous spot that took a lot of steam. Like, it took 20 years to build because everybody kept going back and they're like, look, I know, like, these people, the smart money, they made money. Institutional investors, the ones that calculate or whatever, looking at all these graphs, oh, they made money. And then the media attention, the flippers, they made money. I want to make money. Everybody wants to make money. Great, everybody wants to make money. And then you get to the no limits, which is very dangerous because you believe that there's no limit. Sky is not even the sky is the limit. So anyways, now we get to the other side, which is denial, right? So even if you show statistics, you show proof, you show numbers, you show examples on their street. When I trade, I show you a real-time example in order to make it work. I understand. You want the most amount of money in your pocket. We get that. Okay, nobody's stupid here. But look, I'm telling you that the properties on your street are 20% less than what you bought it for. And for some reason, that doesn't click in, right? Like, they're like, no, that's not true. It's not possible. How is it not possible? I just showed you 4 examples. Your neighbors that fell off, and they probably lost 20%, but I don't know them. But I'm assuming, right? Because the numbers don't usually lie, right? So now the denial. So as we're going in the denial, right, like from the high interest rates and all of that stuff, and everybody's holding on, and the question I had to some of, clients and people and acquaintances and people even on the channel, I'm like, okay, let me ask you a question. How is it possible for you to ride this particular wave of 2022, 2023, and even 2024, because it's ongoing for so 2-3 years, right? The peak high, ultimate high interest rates compared, right? Comparing to what we had, the 1s and the 2s. We were in the 6s and the 7s. There's a, well, you know what? Like, I kept dipping into my line of credit. I kept dipping into this, and I kept dipping into my Visa. And I'm like, hold on, but look, but that's not what you can afford. You get that? Like, you're just basically digging yourself a bigger and a bigger and a bigger hole. So you're getting yourself into more debt because that's what it is. No, it will correct. And this is where we get to the return to normal market. And I believe that we are somewhere here, return to normal, because majority of people are stating that, claiming that they have their own versions of the market, which is legitimate. I mean, that's fine. You have to think for yourself. Get it. I understand that. But take a look at this. This is a normal market. To who? Right? You were in debt up to here. Now you're in debt up to here. And now we're returning to normal. I don't understand. Nobody can afford anything. These banks are slashing these interest rates like it seems like every week. I know it's not, but it does seem like it, with these jumbo cuts, right? They're changing even the internal systems and not laws, but they're changing they're adapting to the market. You can have more for less down payment, if you know what I'm saying, right? So what they're trying to do, they're trying to spark back the market. Fine, ignite the market. Fine, I understand that. But why do you think that we're returning back to normal? Because what you have seen on the graph, it's only that section where you felt a little bit of pain, and that pain was taken away. It was taken away with more debt on your name. That's it, right? So you kind of felt the pain, but you had a band-aid. You always had a band-aid, right? So now we get to the actual fear. So the next step, I believe, which is already starting, so we're somewhere in between return to normal market to fear in the market. So I think we're in between those two right now. And now people are analyzing, they're questioning. They're not necessarily fearing, but they're calculating. Okay, so how much longer can I keep this band-aid on? That's all they're doing right now. Because I don't have any more accounts, jars, savings necessarily, or venues where I could tap into more cash, right, to sustain my lifestyle. You get that? So now they're kind of fearing a little bit. So once we go through that stage of ultimate fear and a little bit of pain, we're going to get into stuck. You're going to be stuck. That's it. No going back, because it doesn't make no sense, right? To some of owners or speculators, it already doesn't make any sense, because I talk to them all the time and they tell me, look, if I pull out now, right? If I pull out now, guess what's going to happen? I'm going to lose my down payment here. I'm going to lose this. I'm going to lose that. Guess what? I have to pay back the interest on this. And guess what? I have to give the line of, so what's left? So they're only concerned with what is left. I get that. But look, if you're doing the math, you owe nothing anyways, because your debt ratio is so high, you owe nothing, right? Rather go rent a place that you can afford and try to live normally. Stop faking your lifestyle. Stop faking everything. Get rid of as much debt as possible, right? Decipher all these codes that you might be listening to, manifestation and action and this and that, and you know what, like, you need the debt in order to grow. I get that, but you need a plan too, right? Like, you need to be able to sustain that particular debt ratio once you're in business or once you're doing any type of moves. It's not just like that. Just because you accumulated debt means you're gonna be successful or you're gonna, make it. It doesn't mean that, right? 81% of Toronto condo investors today that bought in this particular bubble between the greed, the illusion, and no limits, that particular bubble, are underwater a month, on average more than $600 a month. That's huge. 81%. That's not 3%, 5%, 81%. might as well say 100%, right? Because some of the people are probably $3,000 in water, some are 600, but the average is high still. So they're stuck. So some of these people get to the stuck faster than the others. So let's make that clear. All right. So then we get into the surrender phase. And that's where the phone will go off the hook. That's when everybody will start to panic because they'll take that band-aid off and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm hurt. I'm really hurt. I need assistance. Now I need assistance. So what do I do? So I surrender. Just get me out of this headache because I've been stuck for a year, 3, 4, 5, X years, whatever the X year is. And I need to get out. Like I want to get some sleep, right? Like, so that's exactly where they get to. And then even at the bottom of the scale is grief, right? Remember, no limits. It's the same energy, but just negative, right? As much energy was put into the no limits aspect, right? Feeling good, feeling strong. I don't care. I don't care about the others. It's about me. I want to have another unit. If I can buy the entire city, I will, right? Like the monopoly kind of mentality, right? Like, I don't care, right? Like I made it, you didn't, so what, right? But now when we get to the bottom of this chart, it's grief. So it's going to be the same intensity, just in a negative. Oh, market sucks. You know what? It happened to me. It happened to so many others. Well, what did you do along the way? Well, it doesn't matter what they did, but look, I got affected. You know what? You only lose money in real estate. It's not true. It is not true. Like, let me tell you another point, a personal point. I could have bought a Bitcoin. I know it's a little bit off topic, but it's a good story. So I bought that. I could have bought a Bitcoin for $700 to $750 a Bitcoin, right? At that time, I said like, what is this? Like, I don't even know what it stands for. I couldn't understand it. Like many others, right? It was just like nonsense talk. Like, I'm gonna invest into some, I don't know, Roblox game online or something like that. Like, that's what I anticipate. Like that's what I thought about it. Like, this is like maybe a scam, maybe not, but whatever. It doesn't matter, right? Like, I had the funds. I could have bought a few, no problem, right? So, but I didn't. And then I asked myself the question. I'm like, okay, look, let's say you bought those Bitcoin. Okay, so let's say I bought 10. Okay, I gave $7,000 and I bought 10 Bitcoins valued at $700 each. Great, no problem. And let's say that Bitcoin jumped to, I don't know, $2,000, $3,000. I believe that I would have probably sold, right? Like I probably would have sold, and I probably would have been like, you know what? I invested $7,000 on 10 of these. I don't even know what they're called. And now I'm gonna be making so $21,000. You know what? Get my profits back, pay, go on a vacation, buy myself a car. I was young at that, whatever, like a teenager or whatever. So no problem, right? So I would probably have done that. But most people are calculating it in this way. And when I asked them that question specifically, they couldn't answer it. So I'm going to ask you a question directly. If you bought a Bitcoin for, let's say, $700, would you have waited for that particular Bitcoin to hit 100 grand or 90 or whatever? I don't even know how much it is, but let's call it $100,000, and then you would sell? No, you wouldn't do that. Absolutely not, right? So there are some people that know how to play that game, right? So back to real estate, right? Yes, some people bought a long time ago, they didn't sell. They are considering this investment, and it is an investment, right? Like a personal investment, right? Plus a shelter, plus a need, and it is wise. But there is a timing for that. So if you're buying to live. Forget about the investment. how much it is, or when you retire one day, you'll see how much it is. But until then, try to pay it off, try to live, try to enjoy it, try to raise your kids, maybe have a dog, whatever it is, right? But try to live in a home first. Don't use it for a speculative game, right? Because you can get hurt, and many will be hurt in this game, unfortunately. But that's how you played your cards. So now the grief will be like, oh, it sucks. And guess what happens then? Then we get back to welcome back, dear players. We're at level 1. Now it's the best time to invest in real estate. And being in this particular time, it makes sense who has the money to do so. And then these no limit people will get to the grief people, and you'll be like, you know what? It's the worst thing that ever happened to me. I lost millions, trillions, billions, thousands, whatever the case is, right? So they will put a little bit of a handbrake when it comes to, but I don't think we're there yet. And these welcome back people, players, however you want to call them, that are looking for a house to live in, the time is coming. And the final step is the takeoff again. In order for a takeoff to make sense in any equation, it has to make financial sense. It has to make the sense with your earnings, lifestyle, and the actual product that you're buying, so it makes sense for you to actually go ahead, pull that trigger, and buy that particular home. You can call it an investment. I would call it a home if it's one. If you're investing, it's a different story. So I hope that this graph gave you some value, because it always does to me, because I can clearly see where I'm at, and I can ask myself the question, how do I feel, or where did I feel a certain way on this particular graph? Like the takeoff stage, first time sell-offs, we went through that. I know you've been there, right? Like the media attention, the enthusiasm, the greed, the delusion, and all that stuff, right? So I think, just to finalize it quickly, we went from the denial into the return to normal market, and we have seen that little jump in the market, but now we are definitely getting into the fear, being stuck mode, surrendering. It's coming. To some, it's already here. And then again, grief. We have to go through that healing period, and welcome back. Real estate market is open for everyone to dip in. So please, if you enjoyed this video, if you got some value out of this video, continue to watch any other videos on my channel. Please like, subscribe, and share, and see you all in the next one.